Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Lucha Underground Luchador Spotlight. On our last episode on Tuesday, we talked about Ivelisse, and she is awesome. She retweeted it, she liked it, she tweeted us, she commented on YouTube. She is just amazing, and it was actually our longest episode of Lucha Spotlight ever, so even more credit to her. But today, we're going to talk about Ivelisse's biggest nemesis of season one, Catrina, and Catrina's season one, what we think she might actually be, and of course, moving forward, Catrina's season two. So, John, let's open things up with Catrina, just like a general overall. What do you think of her?
Katrina to me is interesting because one of the best discussions that you and I consistently have about Lucha Underground is about women, because we look at Sexy Star, we look at Ivelisse, and now we look at Katrina. And in each way, I feel like they embody like a certain inspiring quality as it relates, to women and maybe even to
They all
people in
have
general.
very different roles that they fill.
They do. They really do. And I think the really fascinating part of Katrina, when you really look at it again, because with Sexy Star and Ivelisse, I like to parallel it with contemporary society and legitimate real life, struggles and workings and things like that, is really her movement upwards to power. Like, there's something very intriguing about watching Katrina rise in the first season and seize power for herself that I think has just been such a great narrative to watch unfold. She really has become, by the end of the first season, the most powerful person in the temple. And, again, that's neither here nor there as far as gender goes. It's not the most powerful woman or whatever. It's just the most powerful person in general.
Right.
And seeing as how she's going to maintain that power or maybe even grow that power in the second season, I think will be an interesting point of conversation today. So I'm very much looking forward to having it.
Yeah, and I think that the biggest thing that we've discussed in the past about Katrina that hasn't been confirmed or denied by the Lucha Underground brass is we think that there is a very distinct possibility, given the sort of supernatural pretense that Lucha Underground has. Maybe, just maybe, Katrina isn't human. Maybe there's a possibility that she is a succubus.
Yes, I mean it really all started, at least for me. I mean, maybe you had notions prior to that, but really when the bulb went off in my head was seeing her give that long lick to Mil Muertes in front of Phoenix, where I'm like, you know what? Something's going on here, and they'd always use like the language association of, oh, she's taking a piece of the soul or whatever. And when you look at succubus mythology, that's primarily what they would do. Granted, the biggest difference is that you look at succubi, they'd always do it when a person was sleeping. They'd enter dreams. They'd make it an erotic scenario, whereas Katrina obviously, I mean, well, I guess kind of because they're knocked out. So I guess even then you could make the slightly tenable connection there, and that's your crash course in mythology from John here. So yeah,
I
I do really
appreciate that you went there.
I do think that the succubus theory, even considering that they are knocked out, they're incapacitated after matches, like even thinking about it in that context, the connection still exists. I say yeah that she is not from this world, she is otherworldly, and you could even see like that's part of the reason why I think Ivelisse took exception to Katrina, because it always seemed like she was putting the moves on either Son of Havoc or on Helico, like hypnotizing them and luring them in. It's just every little thing that she did that we picked up on screams, okay, she's not human, but she's this. This, of course, being a succubus. So I'd like to see either more confirmation or potentially a refutation in the second season and just really build on her overall mythos.
Yeah.
So.
And for those of you that want to know where Katrina's name comes from, because normally when you think of the name Katrina, you think it's spelled with a K, Katrina. But her name is spelled with a C. And if you just do a simple Google of that name, it's actually a zinc etching by a famous Mexican printmaker. So it's actually a character that's relatively well known in Mexico. It's a female skeleton character,
Interesting. It's
which I think
appropriate
goes
though.
even further because, again, the whole death theme.
Yeah, exactly. That's why I'm like, it's appropriate, certainly, because you look at the disciples of death who have this skeletal kind of look with their attire, and
Yeah.
then of course Mil Muertes. Yeah, that's ingenious. Like that just gives me a whole new appreciation for the character. I'm so glad you brought that up, dude.
Yep. And then a succubus. I'm just going to read the Wikipedia definition for those of you that don't feel like Googling. I know a lot of the time when people listen to our stuff, they just kind of open it up in a separate tab and then continue whatever else they were doing on their computer. That's something that I do with a lot of other audio-only YouTube podcasts.
Oh yeah, me too.
So a succubus is a female demon or supernatural entity in folklore that appears in dreams, like John said, takes the form of a woman in order to seduce men, usually through sexual activity, and that they result in the deterioration of health or even death.
I still feel like there is even if it's not as strong as maybe we might perceive in the eyes of other people, I do believe there is a connection there, and that's where my money has been on for quite some time now. But yeah, I mean, just the idea that we can have these conversations about Catrina and that she has this allure about her, and she's enigmatic in a way because we know so little. We know less about her than we do Mil Muertes. We know more about Mil Muertes than we know about Catrina because at least we know his origins, how he became Mil Muertes. But Catrina just still remains a mystery, which I really think is a stroke of genius because all of our attention was focused on Matanza and unveiling that mystery that Catrina was able to slip through the cracks. So, really good stuff.
And let's not forget, Mil Muertes, we know his real name. His real name before he became Mil Muertes was Pascual Mendoza. We don't know anything like that about Catrina.
Exactly.
So that being said, let's talk about Catrina. Now, it's difficult to talk about Catrina without talking about Mil Muertes. So really, I'm just going to say that throughout the entire season, obviously, she was at ringside during all of Mil's matches, except for, of course, the ones that happened during the Phoenix thing, which we will get to. As far as just talking about things that she did that were noteworthy, early on in the season, I believe episode 3, she told Chavo that he took something that didn't belong to him, referring to the previous week when Chavo cracked Blue Demon in the head with the steel chair. That took place after a Mil match. It was Mil versus Blue Demon. Chavo came in at the end of the match and took Blue Demon out with the chair. And Catrina took offense to that. She told Chavo straight up, you took something that didn't belong to you. Mil doesn't forget, and one day you'll belong to Mil Muertes.
Yes. So really putting Chavo on notice, like, hey, you screwed up, and now sooner or later you're gonna pay your debt.
Right.
So.
And then in episode 5, we had another backstage scene with Mil and Catrina in a hallway. Cueto shows up, and Catrina tells him that they know the darkness he's trying to hide. Again, this is a reference to Matanza Cueto.
Yes, exactly. So nice little tease there.
I think that it's worth noting that in episode 6, there was a line on commentary from Vampiro during a Mil Muertes match against Famous B. So right there, it was a squash. Vampiro really was really heavily implying that Catrina was the one that was kind of pulling the strings here, that she had an agenda.
Yeah, so already we're kind of laying the groundwork that this relationship may not be what we think it is, and yeah, I really appreciated that.
Yeah, and then in episode 13, things got very interesting because Catrina, we had a backstage segment where she made out with Phoenix and then told him not to tell anybody that Mil would bury both of them if he found out. And this was a storyline that lasted quite a few episodes and really was a catalyst in making the Mil Phoenix feud way more intense than it was before, because it's arguable that this feud started in episode 8 or 9. In episode 8, they had the two 10-man matches. Mil won one, Phoenix won the other, and they had a match at the end of the night where the winner would become the number 20 entrant at Aztec Warfare, and the loser would have to enter at number 1. Phoenix lost because it's Mil freaking Muertes, and he obviously didn't know what he was dealing with, but still, these guys had history even at this point. This wasn't what started their feud, it was just what turned it into a second gear.
Absolutely. Yeah, I'm really glad you brought that up, dude, because again, this wasn't necessarily the initial point where we got to the really violent aspects of the feud, but they do have that prior history. There is a precedent there. So.
Yeah, and then in episode 14, Catrina came out during the Phoenix match of that night. It was Phoenix versus Argenis, and Catrina showed up, and she said something to the effect of the power, and this was to Mil, because she showed up during the Phoenix match, and Stryker was saying something about how she was turned on by the action, and then at the end of the match, she licked Argenis, kind of like she would normally do for Mil, but I think from what I remember, Phoenix just kind of walked away. They didn't do anything after that. But then we see Catrina backstage talking about how the power of 1,000 lives is valuable. This all to Mil. So she tells him straight up, like, the power of 1,000 lives is valuable, and it was that power that was too much for you, because Phoenix did beat Mil Muertes. I think that might have been his only loss up to this point, right?
That's correct. Yes.
Yeah. And she was about to continue, but this was when Mil grabbed her by the throat and shouted that he needs nothing, and then walked down the hall and continued on his own path. But Catrina even kind of explicitly said, like, the power of 1,000 lives is something that we might want. So she's trying to be a little bit more on the vague side, but she's still telling Mil, like, she has a plan. Mil just is, at this point, you've almost got to believe that he's like a barbarian. Like, he is just pure, relentless anger, and he doesn't really care what her explanation is. He just wants her to stop making out with this other guy.
And, I think this scene, Ashton, more than any other, really does a brilliant job of illustrating the power dynamic.
Yeah.
Because you have Mil really letting his emotions get the better of him. He's got Catrina by the throat, for God's sakes. Like, you
And
really think it's going to get dark.
And she's just cool as a cucumber.
Exactly. Her composure, dude, I think is what really makes this scene.
Yep.
Because I'm waiting for, like, fear to register in her eyes, or for her to maybe scream, or, like, to even kind of choke out, like, Mil, don't, and, but, like,
Not
nothing.
even a flinch.
Nothing. And that's what makes this work. And that's what really makes you know, holy shit, she's holding all the cards here.
Yep.
So, yeah, this is a great scene.
Yep. And then in episode 15, we had Mil versus Chavo. So Mil got what he wanted. Remember in episode 3, Catrina talks about how Mil would have Chavo. Catrina came down to the ring, though, and it seemed like Mil was just hypnotized by her. Chavo hit Mil with a chair, and all it really did was just piss Mil Muertes off. He beat the living crap out of Chavo, hits him with the flatliner on the same chair that Chavo hit him with, and then demanded that Catrina does the lick of death. And she started leaving, but Mil grabbed her by the hair, practically forcing her to do the lick of death. She refused. He grabs her by the throat, sets her up for the flatliner onto the chair, and then Phoenix comes out for the save. Catrina, again, right in front of Mil this time, makes out with Phoenix. So the tensions are at an all-time high at this point.
Absolutely. And, she's still playing those mind games. She's still going along with her plan. And yeah, you could see where it's gotten her thus far here.
Yep. Then on episode 17, we had just a straight-up match between Phoenix and Mil Muertes, which Mil won. And then on episode 18, we had Phoenix in his locker room, and Catrina shows up and tells him that Mil will not stop until he's taken all of Phoenix's lives, and that Phoenix needs to bury Mil. And then she shows up I think it was in the bathroom later on in the night where Mil Muertes was, and tells him that his match with Phoenix next week will have grave consequences, and that he'll put you in a casket and close the lid. So then, obviously, all the foreshadowing in the world, episode 19, grave consequences.
Which was amazing.
Which Catrina helped to put to close the lid on the casket.
Yes, she opened it and she closed it. That was really her only, like, exerting her will, like, in this matchup that really happened. And, yeah, Phoenix took care of business and Mil got locked away in the casket.
Yeah, that was huge because, you kind of get this feeling that, like, what's going on? There's something bigger going on. But then, like, just straight up, she helped Phoenix to beat him.
Yeah, absolutely. She and really the big moment, like, she even licked the stone and threw it in the casket.
That's right. Yeah, that was huge too.
Yeah, so big things going on here.
Yep. And then in episode 26, she revives him, and we know that something greater is at foot here.
Definitely. Death coming for us all.
Yeah. This was a huge, we were both freaking out when this happened.
Yeah, dude, it was shot so brilliantly, and just the whole vibe and everything that they set up for Mil's, quote unquote revival was just so well done.
Yeah. And then the following episode, we see Catrina show up in Phoenix's locker room and tell him that he was a pawn for death. She disappears. The disciples appear on top of his locker. And then right as they're about to jump down on him and beat him up, it goes dark and they disappear.
Yeah, leaving Phoenix just completely bewildered, like, what's going on? What am I going to do? And yeah, it's just been revealed, like, you were nothing more than a cog in a greater machine at work.
Yep.
Unbelievable, man.
And this is what's great too, is because, like, we're talking about all this Catrina stuff, and the whole time it feels like Mil is nothing more than just a cog in the machine that she is making work.
Exactly. Couldn't agree more.
So then the following week, she shows up in Dario Cueto's office and tells him that Mil is coming back. He's going to be more powerful than ever, and that he wants to end Phoenix. And Cueto's just like, "Oh, all right. What kind of match do you want?" And that's when you hear it, John. Death match.
Yeah, buddy.
So
crazy stuff.
Yeah, it was awesome. So then that whole thing happens with Mil putting Phoenix through the frickin' building.
Yeah, Phoenix is dead.
And then in episode 31, we got our first look at the Disciples of Death in the ring. Catrina did a lick of death on Pimpinella Escarlata to help the Disciples win. And then later on that night, she confronts Cueto in his office, tells him that Mil wants the Lucha Underground Championship, and forces him to set up Mil versus a freshly named number one contender, Drago, a couple weeks from there, because the following episode was all night long, and obviously they weren't going to write over that, for an Ultima Lucha title shot. She tells Cueto that even the monster you keep in that cell is no match for Mil Muertes. So again, teasing at Muertes versus Matanza.
Yes, man. Oh my god, when those two behemoths finally clash.
Yep. So then in episode 33, we had an instance of Team Havoc training. Catrina shows up, summons the Disciples of Death, and they knock Team Havoc out. And then Mil shows up to escort her out to the ring for the match against Drago for number one contendership.
Yes, yes. So she's just playing the mind game. She's setting the table to take all the power come Ultima Lucha. So I really like that.
Yep. Then in episode 34, she steps up to Puma to inform him that Muertes will destroy anything that stands between him and his title.
Yeah, laying down that gauntlet, telling Puma his days are numbered.
Yep. She also, in that same episode, confronts Chavo, reminding him that Mil would destroy whoever happens to hold the title at Ultima Lucha. It doesn't matter. And he just kind of, takes it in stride, but Mil Muertes freaks out about it. But then in episode 35, she tells Son of Havoc that death is coming for him. This was the scene where Catrina shows up and tells her to back off, and then Catrina disappears, and Ivelisse, I said Catrina, Ivelisse shows up and tells her to back off, and then Ivelisse takes a swing at her, ends up landing on Son of Havoc, and everything gets awkward.
Right.
So then we get to Ultima Lucha. Part 1, Disciples of Death win. Part 2, Mil wins. She helped the Disciples of Death win. Actually, to say she helped is an understatement. She's the reason the Disciples of Death won.
Yes, I mean, she straight up clocked Ivelisse in the skull with the stone.
Yeah, she was the direct reason for the Disciples of Death beating Team Havoc.
Absolutely.
Can't say quite the same for Mil, though. He won fair and square.
No, Mil took care of business, man. And can I just say, too, that if you had to get Catrina involved, like, they did it perfectly because they did it for the lesser championship match.
Yep. Yep.
And they had Mil take care of his business in the main event, because I feel like that's such a rare quality, at least when you look at other promotions, namely, of course, WWE. With main event heels, it's always like they've got to do some tactic or have some assistance. No, Mil beat Puma straight up, and that was amazing.
Yep.
So
that sums up Catrina's season 1. She was very active all season. It seems like she might have even done more just from an actual action standpoint, what she was actually doing and just moving parts constantly being in her control than Mil.
Yeah. And
Mil's job all season was just destroy. Whereas Catrina, she was the puppeteer, man. She was the one pulling the strings. She was the one making things happen. She was the one getting the title shots for Mil. She was controlling everything.
Right. Well, it's like if Mil Muertes' destruction was the substance, Catrina gave it a form. It's like destroy to get the Lucha Underground Championship, destroy to get this power, destroy to get that power. So she really gave.
She's like a freaking 3D printer.
Exactly. She took this pure singular drive for violence.
Yeah, just give her some material and she creates.
Exactly. She took this pure singular drive for violence and she gave it nuance. She gave it, a purpose external to itself. So, yeah, really appreciate that kind of dynamic.
Absolutely.
All right. Well, as far
what's going to happen in season 2?
Yep, and there it is. I mean, we already know from the last episode being Evilise, where Catrina fits into my plans ultimately for Ultima Lucha. And here's my thing about her being the proprietor, at least according to the Lucha El Rey Facebook, that little teaser they set out, if we can take it at face value. I actually really like this because I don't know if people will be wondering like, well, how is that going to work? I think I even mentioned this in a past episode. I feel like it works out perfectly because people will probably come to Catrina wanting matches or this and that, and she'll probably want things like their soul or this or that as collateral. It's like, okay, you put this up if you want this. So I think Lucha Underground being led by Catrina has the chance for some very interesting narrative possibilities, and I'm very much looking forward to it. But what about you, Ashton? How do you see Catrina leading the temple in Cueto's absence? I mean, what antagonisms do you see arising for Catrina? Just how do you really see her season going?
I think that Catrina's season 2 is going to be almost exclusively backstage stuff. I think that there's a possibility that they might not even keep her as Mil Muertes' escort to the ring. They might just use her in an exclusively backstage capacity, just in these video package style, like cinematic kind of things. I think obviously if she's going to be the proprietor, she's going to need to come out to make announcements for matches and stuff. But other than that, really until Cueto comes back at least, I see her having a very minimal role in the actual temple, meaning like what the actual crowd sees, and being more prominent in these backstage cinematic vignette style videos.
Now, let me ask you something, Ashton, a thought that just occurred to me. Do we see the power struggle between Catrina and Dario Cueto realize itself with Matanza versus Mil Muertes? Is that how we get here? Maybe Dario comes back, he sees
Yo,
Catrina
oh
in
my
his...
god, that's probably what they're building up to, yeah.
Yeah, I guarantee you, Dario will come back. He'll see Catrina in his chair, and you know Catrina isn't going to go quietly with
No.
everything that she's built. So he thinks to
Yeah.
himself, I gotta sick Matanza on her, but there's only one problem. Mil Muertes is her sworn protector. So maybe we get Matanza versus Mil Muertes for the championship and control of the temple. Like a really
Oh my
winner-take-all scenario.
god. Well, I mean, I could even see a situation where Cueto gets the upper hand and he regains control, but Catrina wants it back, so she makes Mil put the title on the line to get the control of the temple back.
Okay, so you could see Dario retaking control, and because she wants it back, she says, "Okay, if you're willing to wager what I'll call the chair, meaning like the power of the temple,
Right.
then I'll have Mill put up his championship."
Yep.
So we still get the winner take all scenario that I've kind of envisioned, but we just go about it a bit differently.
Right. Well, because really, if I mean, why would Catrina be willing to put anything on the line if Cueto has nothing to lose?
Exactly. Yeah, that does make sense. Yeah, I agree. The only thing I could see is if Catrina wanted to taste Cueto's soul because we've been speculating if Cueto's even human himself. But I think your route is far more practical. It's less convoluted. It's just more straightforward, which to me makes it the preferable
They
option.
could even do it the other way around, where Catrina maintains control of the temple, but Cueto uses Matanza to win the title and forces Catrina to put the temple up for grabs if she wants Mil to get the title back.
Yeah, which could cause friction in Katrina's and Mil Muertes' relationship because it's like, well, that
No,
championship is
no,
everything.
it
You
won't.
don't think
It won't.
so?
No, because
And
she owns him. She completely, she brought him back to life, dude. He literally owes his life to her.
that is true. That is true. Regardless, I do think we have
I
a
think the
very
only
interesting option.
way, I'm sorry, I think the only way that we will ever get a breaking up or any kind of tension between Mil and Catrina again is if it's on her end, if she wants to end it.
Right, right. I would actually really have to agree with you there. Yeah, because I mean it really has been shown that the first season she holds all the cards.
Yeah.
But again, regardless, I think we have a very interesting opportunity here. I think we could tell a really great story, and a story like this, I mean, that's putting a lot on Katrina's back, for her share of everything. But she did so well in the first season. I have no problem conceiving that she could do it again here.
Yeah.
That
And I
just
think the
really
one
excites
thing I want to add, I think she will become the second entity in Lucha Underground history to literally murder someone.
You know what? That wouldn't surprise me at all.
It was Matanza in season 1. I think Catrina is going to get her hands or possibly her claws dirty in season 2 and actually kill someone.
I feel like it's been kind of teased for all the licks that she does. I could see a segment where maybe she's luring somebody in with her voice or, some kind of seductive quality. And then, like, yeah, like you said, maybe claws come out or teeth. And then you just see blood spatter and just some crazy imagery like that. That isn't impossible for me to conceive at all. Man, what a character Catrina is. It just makes
Yeah,
me so excited for her second season.
absolutely. It's funny too because back when she was on NXT, I felt like they were never really doing justice for her, and they were making her talk way too much. Her strong suit isn't her talking, it's her body language, it's her expressions, it's her acting ability is great. She's not an amazing promo, but if you give her smaller digestible lines, she gets them across incredibly well, and that's exactly what Lucha's done for her.
Well, yeah, I think it's more succinct promos, and her delivery of said promos I think really works because
Yeah.
that whole like
And
death
not to
quality.
mention, she was one of the most entertaining things in NXT when they just decided, and by they I mean the writers, just decided to stop giving a shit, and they were just like, okay, so Katrina, Caitlyn, Bateman, and Johnny Curtis, you guys are gonna run the show, and it became incredibly entertaining when they did. Like her and Johnny Curtis as a couple on NXT was amazing, and she was a big part of what made it great. And now she's on Lucha Underground playing a completely opposite role to the one she was playing in NXT. And I would go as far as to say she's even better now than she was then.
Oh, dude, there's no comparison to me. To me, I wouldn't even consider that like a legitimate conversation. If somebody were to step up to me and be like, "No, Maxine was better," I'd be like, "Sit down, sit down," because
No,
like,
I'm not
yeah,
necessarily saying Maxine was better as a whole, but if
right,
you just watch like the few months where it was like her, Bateman, Caitlyn, and Johnny Curtis running the show in
right.
NXT, I feel like that was her best work ever. And I feel like now this Lucha Underground stuff has become her new best work ever.
It makes me respect her because I do remember Maxine. I mean, you and I have watched I mean, who could forget chloroform, right? Chloroform forever. And
Why
and
don't I have chloroform?
exactly. And you see, like, this Katrina character is antithetical to what Maxine used to be in every conceivable way.
Yeah.
And yet to see that she can really have that variance and that nuance in her
That's
performances,
what I'm saying, man. Like,
like, yeah.
she's not the best promo, and I don't really remember her being incredible in the ring, but she's a damn good actor.
They really found, and by that I mean Lucha Underground, they really found a way to maximize her abilities and make her.
Or,
I mean,
alternatively, they had a role and they found the perfect person to fill it.
exactly. One or the other. And they've been riding it all the way, and then they're going to continue to in season two. And that's the beauty, I think, of Lucha Underground. They take people that maybe we commonly associate like WWE or some other place, and we think, well, they had shortcomings in this area, that area. They find a way to completely hide those negatives and really accentuate the positives that they bring to the highest possible level. And I think nowhere is that found more than Katrina. I've just been so impressed with her work.
Yep. And
And
the
yeah,
great thing too is that it's not like she's awful in the ring. She's not. She's obviously competent in the ring. I wouldn't mind if they decided to actually put her in a match or two this season, just to kind of like. I think it would be cool if they had, and I could imagine them doing this even better on a backstage segment, like a cinematic where she just beats the shit out of someone, and maybe even this is the segment that they use to kill someone with her. But I could even see her set up a match between herself and somebody that's just been a pain in her ass all season, and she just destroys them.
yeah, dude. Here's my thing. I would love to see that. Now, obviously, and I know that's not what you're advocating. I'm just saying in general. Like, you wouldn't want her to be in the ring too much because that's not her bread and butter. But when she does get in the ring, it's gotta matter. It's either gotta be somebody,
Yep.
like you said, that she needs to take care of, or somebody, as it was my case with my Ultima Lucha booking of Evilise, it's gotta be somebody that's finally gonna deliver a comeuppance to her. So it's
Yes.
it's always gotta matter. You can't waste somebody like Katrina with the presence, the air that she's developed about her when
Yep.
you put her in the ring. So I completely agree with you. You either put
Her,
her
yeah.
there.
I feel like her character is like the Undertaker meets Stephanie McMahon. Like you know that these characters don't get in the ring unless it's going to mean something.
Exactly, exactly, and I think Lucha Underground has that exact mindset about her because we haven't seen her have a formal match yet, and hell, she may never have one.
Yeah.
But only time will tell, my friend. I'm
We
just
will
so
see.
excited.
I mean, like I said, she's not awful in the ring. She's good in, well, she's competent in the ring.
Right, and dude, I think that's enough too, because you
Right.
have to know that any match that she has, she would bring all the guns to the table. So
Right.
like
And
she's
that's the
6 or
thing
7
too,
dead with
is
that.
that if you're not putting her in the ring every single week, they can put more effort into making her match or matches really, really, really well thought out and really good. Like
Exactly.
she obviously, like she can still, like she can sell well, she can, your basic stuff that goes into the actual in-ring product is, she's got it down. It's not like she's freaking Eva Marie walking up the ropes trying to do a sliced bread number 2. She's not that bad.
Exactly.
So I think we've done enough talking about her and her skill set and her history. At the end of the day, we both really appreciate her as a performer, and I think that we share something in that we both feel like her character is probably one of the best things going in Lucha Underground right now.
Oh, without question, brother.
Because
Without
there's still
question.
so many questions that there are worth asking about the Catrina character. And the great thing about it is, I don't think any question is a dumb question with her. Like, if you want to ask, oh, is she a vampire? I think you have to give serious thought to it.
Yeah, certainly. And again, like that's what I love. Like Matanza isn't the only surprise at work here. There
Well,
is
I think
still,
Cueto, the Cuetos in general, both of them.
yeah.
Yeah.
It's funny, dude, because when you really reflect back on it, and I think this episode kind of epitomizes it, when you really reflect back on the first season, we really didn't get a lot of answers.
Right.
And yet, I think but see,
Well,
here's why I bring that up.
the first
Because,
season wasn't really meant to give us answers. It was meant to hook us in, make us want more, and raise a ton of questions that we don't want to stop until we get them answered.
and that is true. I feel like when they were teasing him out, though, particularly, of course, my mind always goes back to Matanza because that's the biggest example. Most people would get irritated with, just a little morsel or not really enough, what they would conceive as not enough closure. But
Right.
to me, they do it so
Frickin'
well.
closure. Don't
What?
bring up closure after this week's Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D.
I know, right? Oh my god, the blue balls, though. But yeah, like, what I love, and I've said this before about Lucha Underground, but again, I feel like it's so appropriate here because it is Katrina. Lucha Underground, what it does better than any other promotion right now, how it paces itself, though.
See,
Like,
to me, what Lucha
damn.
Underground does better than anyone else is make you want something and then give it to you.
Exactly. Exactly. It doesn't promise you the carrot only to give you the stick. If
Yeah.
it's telling you the carrot's in sight, you're gonna get it.
WWE.
Yeah, exactly. All they ask in return, and I like this. Pay attention to the story.
Yep.
Be intelligent. Put it together. And it's not insulting. It's patient.
It's the
It
opposite of
appreciates
insulting.
exactly. Just my God, I love this show, and I think all those qualities are embodied in the Katrina character. And once again, I'm left in an episode saying January can't come fast enough, and I hate my calendar right now because it's only December 3rd. So there you go.
Yeah, it's only December 3rd, and we've got another 5 or 6 weeks to wait before
These,
our
yeah.
first episode. And you know, it's also like the fact that Raw is as bad as it is makes us want it even
I
more.
know, dude. I know. I'm seeing these people on Facebook. 22 more sleep days till Christmas. Sit the hell down. You don't even know what anticipation is.
37 or 40 or however many days until Lucha. Oh God, kill me now.
Yeah, see, that's the real countdown right there. But
Yeah.
yeah, man, nothing else to say about Katrina. This was awesome.
All right, guys, we're going to close this one out. We'll see you all on Saturday when we get to talk about the Disciples of Death.
Wrestling Fan LC, get ready. It's going to be awesome.